Let's bring him in now. Rod Smith, CFL on TSN. I appreciate him sitting through all of that. Roderick, how you doing, my man?
I am Roderick. Are you Roderick or Rodney, Rod Pedersen?
I am Rodney. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. We got it all covered here on The Rod Show.
Oh, man. I don't like to bring people on with deeper voices than I have, but today I will make an exception.
Yeah, right.
Rod, how is your life?
Good to see you again, by the way.
Always good to see you. Always good to see you, my man. Congratulations on the posting. We had Milt on Friday and said how much you'd coveted this role. How has your life changed since you've been named a lead play-by-play man for the CFL on TSN?
Well, I'm still technically on a preseason vacation. It hasn't changed yet, but it is about to, Rod. Thank you. And in a really good way. I loved the studio. I love working with Milt and Maddie and Davis Sanchez and, of course, Henry and our dearly departed Schultze, our friend who passed away earlier this year. I got a lot of fond memories of that show. But before I hang it up and call it a career, I wanted to get back in the booth. You may recall, although this is going back, I was actually the host of the CFL on TSN back in 1997, and I had a chance to hit the road in 98 and call games, and a guy by the name of James Duthie took over from me. And I loved it. I did, but my family was quite young, and it wasn't just going to represent travel during the football season. It was meaning becoming a play-by-play guy full time and being on the road a lot. And I thought there was a lot of stress in a young family, so I chose the studio. I didn't regret it. I've loved every minute of it, but this is an opportunity at least to get out and call, not just doing play-by-play of a sport that I love. It's in my blood. I was born in Ottawa and raised on the CFL. And I continue to love it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to the call. I mean, you've called enough games over the years. I've heard it, and you're fantastic. But listen, I didn't want to say this to Milt on Friday when he was on, but Rod, the best panel ever. Yourself, E.T., Obi, and Marty York. How did you keep that romper room?
Actually, you know what?
What?
It was, Rod, it was actually, E.T. came the next year. It was Les Brown. Remember Les Brown, Hall of Famer?
Well, of course.
Obi, Les, and Marty. And that show got off the rails in a real hurry. So, yeah, thanks for the memories.
I just remember Obi's bracelet rattling off the desk all the time. And, oh, my God, it was so good. It's always been good for 25 years or whatever. But, I mean, oh, my God, those guys were something else. So what is your take on the CFL training camps here as we enter week 3? What's sticking out at you?
Well, I mean, it's like no other, and it's not ideal. Let's face it. I mean, no preseason games, very little contact. I thought I've talked to a couple of coaches. I thought it was really telling what Craig Dickinson had to say in one of his media conferences afterwards about their scrimmage. You can sense the frustration just because they're blowing the whistle early, so you don't know how well the offensive line is doing because they don't want a defensive lineman hitting the quarterback. Just things like that. This is not ideal, but I understand that. They got to get going again. They got to find a way. And if it's under these conditions, less than ideal as they are, I'm still glad to see that they're giving it a go and they're going to play again. So, here's hoping next year it'll be a lot more normal, full training camps, preseason games, of course, and everything else. But, yeah, I mean, I can see how it's tough on a coach and players, too, trying to make the team.
I know, I'm pretty sure you told me this before, but were you not a lineman with the Golden Gales? What was your football history?
Yeah, I played at Queens for a couple of years. I was a center, and then I moved outside to right tackle. So that was, that was a long time ago, late 70s, early 80s. But so a little bit there. And enough to certainly have an understanding of Canadian university sports and football. But it was just all part of the passion that I had for it. Not the greatest old lineman, to be sure, but I had a lot of fun playing the game and made it that much more fun watching it, and even as mentioned, getting a chance to call it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was the Queens Golden Gales. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that the coaches
will.
Yeah, is that you?
1979. Well, I'm in there at the back, just an 18-year-old kid, but they had won the Vanier Cup, the national title, the year before, and that was a pretty good team too. Lost to Western in a national semifinal, but fond memories. That's all I have right now, Rod. Right behind me.
Well, Rod, every guy on that team was notable, but who's somebody that our viewers might recognize that you recall, name-wise?
Well, there were a couple that went to the CFL. One was the late Jim Muller, who played for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and he was a Metris Trophy winner. Another one, Ross Francis, who played in Ottawa. But and there was another teammate, Greg Bond, who was a very good college player, whose father happened to be Bobby Bond. So there were a number, of course, famous NHL player. But a lot of really good, talented people. I don't know if there'd be one name that would be household standing out now. Played against Greg Marshall, who later became a great head coach with Western. Who he was just an outstanding running back. His brother Blake, of course, had a terrific CFL career, but Greg's was cut down by injury. But a lot of good football talent. But just off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of someone that would, a name that would just pop out with a long CFL career.
Well, that's a few. Speaking of those types of guys, Arlen Bruce III is watching, and he writes in all caps. Do you guys want to put it on the screen? Every time I hear Rod Smith, I think he's doing highlights. Loved when he did my highlight reels. Congratulations. And to be honest with you, when the news released, there's the comment on the bottom of the screen from Arlen. This did not surprise me with the announcement at all, Rod, because in a lot of ways, your voice is the soundtrack of the CFL, along with Cuthbert, along with Rod Black. I saw Rod's a call of him of a Greg Ellingson touchdown. I was in the highlight pack this morning. That's when I watched Sports Center. So, and Kelsey's Roadhouse. Every time I drive by Kelsey's, I think of you. By the way, Ryan Gregory writes on YouTube, how does Rod Smith think the quality of play will be after that much time off and no preseason?
It's a great question, and let's be honest. I mean, I could couch it by saying I think it'll get better as the season goes on, but I mean, when you don't have scrimmage, you barely have scrimmage and you don't have preseason games, I think the quality of the start of the season is going to leave a bit to be desired. That said, sometimes games can be awfully interesting when mistakes happen. I mean, not that I'm looking forward to going and watching a game with a bunch of mistakes made as teams struggle to find their identity, but I still think the games could be entertaining, but I certainly don't think they're going to be mistake-free. I think it's going to take these teams, especially under these circumstances, a lot of time to gel and really find out who they are. And that could take weeks. I think we could be talking week 4 or week 5 before they start to establish an identity. But that said, I'm really curious. I love the league anyway. I mean, despite of the circumstances they're going to struggle through in the early part of this season, I'm really looking forward to it. So, and by the way, Rod, Arlen Bruce, I did read a lot of highlights and I think did a couple of games that he was doing too. He was a heck of a ball player.
Oh, for sure. And just an electric personality. One of the guys that makes the CFL so great. I don't know how many interviews you're doing, Rod. I assume it's a lot. I mean, I was on a podcast last night, and I'll say it, no credentials required podcast out of Albany, New York. And they asked for a Grey Cup prediction. And I was like, it is so early. You know what teams get to the Grey Cup are usually the healthiest. And Bo Levi's not practicing. Nick Arbuckle's not practicing. Michael Riley's missed time. Matt Nichols isn't practicing. And by the way, no fault of their own, Rod. This is 2 weeks through training camp with 2 weeks to go. It's impossible to make a Grey Cup prediction right now.
Yeah, good luck to you. I mean, I think the fallback that many have, including me, it's easy to lean on Hamilton because we're basing it on 2019. And Jeremiah Masoli is healthy, and they have the most enviable quarterback situation, at least based on the previous season the CFL played, than any other club in the league with Dane Evans there as well. But you're right. I mean, I'm proud of my 2019 prediction because I got it right, the matchup and the winner. But in this one, it is just too hard to really know. I mean, I do hear a lot of Hamilton and some Saskatchewan. If despite their changes, if they can find a way to pick up what they did in 2019, but next to impossible. We really don't know, and that's the thing. There are going to be a lot of new faces in this league, but not only that, there are veteran players who haven't played in a long time, upwards of 2 years. And to your point, injuries are a concern too, especially early on, given the circumstances coming in. And I really hope. We had a year where just about every starting quarterback went down just a couple of years ago, and I really hope we're not dealing with that. I hope they can stay healthy enough and stay on the field and figure this thing out early on in the season.
By the way, Winnipeg has woken up. The viewers. Tacona Powley writes in and says, Bombers. Well, yeah,
Hey,
for sure. Yeah.
who did I have in 2019? Bombers beating Hamilton, the Grey Cup. That was my preseason prediction. So don't think I don't show Winnipeg any love.
Go. We got to find that clip. Yeah, you should put that clip up and open up this season with that. Hey, let's get into it. Jeff, the Stamps fan watching in Calgary, says Hamilton has a lot of pressure on them. They have a shrinking window, and the cup is at Tim Hortons Field.
True.
I don't think pressure's going to bother them. I really don't. But what is your take on that comment?
Well, I mean, I can see the point that, as I mentioned before, a lot of people think that they should be the favorite right now. And I'll say, even though, as we talked about before, it's so difficult to establish after this long layoff. So sure, I'll say I think Hamilton should be, the preseason favorite going in, but there's just so much up in the air. But the fact that the Grey Cup is in Hamilton for the first time since 1996, and the Ticats have this team that lost to a great Bomber team in 2019, and I think they feel it's their time. As mentioned, their quarterback situation, their talented set of receivers, a very strong defense, a number of great veterans, the core of that team still intact, coming back. And in the East, still somewhat in flux. I mean, I'll be curious to see what Montreal can do to build on 2019. The Argos made a lot of changes, but going with a young quarterback in Nick Arbuckle, and Ottawa, with Paul Lapalisse, still building that team, trying to rebuild after a really tough year in 2019. So I can see it. I do think there's pressure on the Ticats. Absolutely. The expectation is there.
James, watching in Borden, Manitoba, says, I'm just so happy to have Rod and the CFL back. So there you go, Roderick. You are making people happy. Ryan, watching in the Maritimes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, watching in the Maritimes, says, what's Rod's take on the Schooners? Any news on that?
It's interesting. I first heard that Schooner's name in my last year at Queens in 81. We were down at the Atlantic Bowl. In my final game, we lost to Acadia, but there was a lot of talk about it then with the late J.I. Albrecht and interest. They'd established we're going back 40 years, where they had established the Atlantic Schooners name and the plan to play in Husky Stadium at St. Mary's, obviously with a lot of seats added. It didn't, for financial reasons, it never panned out. And the dream of that 10th team, occasionally referred to as 9th team when when the CFL was, for a time, an 8-team league, but talking about the 10th team again, that dream hasn't gone away. It seems like it's been a little bit closer, but still, I really wonder what this global pandemic has done to that plan, as the CFL has got to get, its own house in order financially and make sure that its current franchises are okay, I think, and get back on its feet, before they can think about that 10th team. That's my thought. I'd be curious to see how it plays out, but I don't. It seems to me anyway like it'd be more of a back burner thing until the CFL is sure that it's recovered from really an awful couple of years.
I think we have only 60 seconds, but I just want to ask you about, what was the name of that show you and I talked about that you did with Pop and Jones, where you sat around in the restaurant, in the bar, and just talked?
Around the Table, I think it was called. Around the Table.
How awesome was that? And you guys only aired it like one weekend. That's something I would have watched the same show 5 times. Will you ever do that again?
Thank you. That part frustrated me because we never knew what feed it was going to be on. Because I had friends that would tell me, when is it on? And I think it's on TSN 3 at 7:30 and running again on TSN 4 the next day. And I wish that it had been given more play, because I don't know if they're doing it again, but I'd love to, because just to be able to do TV that way, I'll make it quick. It was a half-hour show, but we'd shoot about 45 to 50 minutes. So it was probably an editing nightmare, but they were relaxed and got lots of great stories. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Hey, well, how was Jones?
That was Chris. He was honest. He was honest. I mean, I actually enjoyed him in that, because he didn't pull punches, he didn't mince words, and that's what we were looking for. And I know you like that in an interview as well.
He's a great guy. I knew he was great.
Yeah.
I knew what the answer would be. Hey, Rod, thanks for the time. Always good seeing you, my man. We'll see you on the trail.
Great to see you again, Rod. Thank you for this.
The CFL on TSN's Rod Smith joining us from the T-Dot.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.